Welcome to this short training video on how to recover data in Jaguar should you have a problem on race day. This video is copyright 2011 Innovative Timing Systems. You are not permitted to record this video or to rebroadcast or distribute this information to anyone outside of your race company. It's race day and you've been collecting chip reads on participants in the event, and perhaps you have a problem with the software or you accidentally erase data. Well, how do we reconstruct a database using information that's been stored on our disk drive so that we can get back the perhaps finish times on an event? Well, to begin with, when Jaguar is writing information out during a race, it's automatically updating what's called a chip output file. That output file actually contains the chip number and bib number, which are one and the same in Jaguar, and it also contains the time that the chip was read. Well, that raw file can be used as an emergency backup in the event that we would need to reconstruct, for example, finish times in our database. So let's take a look at an example of what might happen at a race. We'll go into the race info menu and we'll select the race database. Now, once we bring up the race database on screen, we notice that there are a number of options down here at the bottom. And perhaps we accidentally select the clear finish times. Okay, so in other words, our finish times here, which we can clearly see are in the system in our elapsed times, for some reason perhaps we accidentally clear the finish times, or maybe the database just got corrupted, or perhaps we did not have the database mode set to the correct setting during the race. Perhaps instead of finish only for our database mode, we had the system set to perhaps split one. As we see here, we have some times. Okay, so the point is, even though you may have had your database mode set incorrectly, and let's take a look at that. Again, maybe you had your database mode set to split one. You meant to have it set at finish only, but you didn't. Well, the good news is all that information that was written out on split one was actually written to our chip output file. So what we could do is we could simply go into this race database here and we could say, okay, well, we don't have any times here and we need to get them back in because we accidentally wrote them to the split one column. To simulate that, I'm actually going to clear out all of the finish times right now. So I'm going to intentionally wipe out of our database the finish and elapsed times. It's going to ask me a couple of times, are you absolutely sure? Yeah, I'm sure. So this would simulate what might have happened if in fact we had had our database mode set incorrectly. Okay. Now remember, when Jaguar is writing that chip output file, it doesn't actually know if this is a start or split location or finish. It just knows that these are raw chip reads from some point on the course. So to reconstruct our database, all we have to do is simply set the database mode to whichever column in the database we want to load the chip reads into. In this case, we're going to select finish only. Could we select split 2, 3, or 4? Absolutely. We could take those chip outputs, in other words, those raw chips, and we could load that into any of the columns in our database. In this case, we're trying to reconstruct our finish data, so we're going to select finish only. We've done that, and now what we'll do is we'll select the Import Chip Reads button. That option is used to read a chip output file and to reconstruct results that we had from a race. So we select Import Chip Reads. It tells you that this feature will import chip reads from an output file that you've created on the Jaguar system. It asks, have you set the database mode properly? Yes. We've got it set to finish only, which makes sense because they're going to rebuild our finish column. So we say, yes, that's correct. It says, do you want to narrow this down or select specific divisions? No, I want to load everybody in because I'm reconstructing all of my results, so I don't have to narrow it down. Next thing it asks is, do you want to override all the times in the database or just those that are blank? If I in fact had some times here and I did not want to overwrite them, I just wanted to fill in missing ones, I could do that. I could just select N. In this case, I don't have any finish times and I'm trying to rebuild the entire thing, so I would say yes here, for example. Now when I do that, it says, okay, you're going to override all times in the database. Do you also want to make sure that the new time being written over the previous time is a later time? So you could actually say, you know what, I am going to overwrite, and if I see a time here and the time I'm importing is later, go ahead and use that. Doesn't matter how you actually answer it in this case because we don't have a time, so I'll just say yes, that's fine. The next question is, do you want to update the Jaguar output file with the imported chip times? Now this is the current Jaguar output file. We're not going to actually write to that file because that in fact is the file we're going to read to rebuild our database. Why do we have this question here? Well, let's say that we were actually rebuilding, for example, split data or perhaps we had a different finish line, a backup finish line. We could tell Jaguar, when you read the chip output file from the backup finish line, go ahead and add those chip reads to the one at the primary finish line here, into the output file at the primary finish line. It's very rare that you'll say yes, and if you don't understand this prompt, you should never say yes. You should always say no. So here I'm going to say no. In other words, don't update this file with what I'm about to read, because I'm about to read that actual file. So I'm going to say no here. Now it's going to remind me that when I import these finish times, the elapsed times are going to be computed automatically as long as I have start times already in the system. Well, I do in fact have start times. If I didn't, I could exit here. I could go reset my start time if I needed to, perhaps the gun time, and then I could import the finish times and elapsed will be computed. In this case, I do in fact have start times. So I'm going to say yes, I'm ready to import. Now what Jaguar is going to do is it's going to give you a nice summary, and it's going to tell you exactly what it's about to do. So it'll say any existing times in the database for chip time will be overwritten by incoming chip times if the time is within 5 seconds of the existing time, or if there's no time recorded yet. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say yes, we're ready to import those chip times to rebuild our finish. When I say that, say yes, it's going to ask me, well, what file do you want to use? Well, I want to use my finish times, my chip output file. I happen to call mine Jaguar database-finish. Yours would be something different. And in this case, I'm going to say open that file up. When it does that, it's going to scan through. It's going to say 69 data records were scanned. No errors were found. Now, if you notice, there are times back in our database. So let's go into race info. Let's pull back up our database screen here. And you can clearly see that it read back in our finish times. It calculated the elapsed time. So let's recap what we've done. If we had lost the finish times, or perhaps we wrote our finish times into the wrong column, or for that matter, if we had a separate Jaguar system and we just wanted to load the chip output file, the chip reads, into a particular column, the way we do that is we simply go here and set the database mode. We select the import chip reads, and we can use this feature to rebuild an existing database with finish and elapsed times, or we could use this feature to load chip times, in other words, chip output file times, perhaps from a remote point, Jaguar remote software, or perhaps from another Jaguar system. So that's how easy it is to rebuild your database and recover from a situation, or perhaps just update the database using this feature. Thank you.